Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
It is Monday, October 3rd. Wager Talk Today, live every Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here on Wager Talk TV. And don't forget about the Wager Talk TV app. Download it on your favorite device. Watch us anytime, day or night on the move. And also, you can listen to these shows on audio podcast form on your favorite podcasts as well. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez. Don't you worry, Teddy Covers. He'll be back tomorrow on Tuesday. That is my co-host, Teddy Covers, as always. And it is Monday. It's the start of a new week for both college and pro football. It means the MLB playoffs are right around the corner. NBA just around the corner as well. And NHL starts this week. October is here, folks. And this is the best time of month, best month of the year, in my opinion, to be playing, because you've got every major sport going in the same month. Professional sport, that is, college hoop, but a month away. We're going to break down a lot of football as we do every day here on Wager Talk Today in the month of October. And we're going to start it off with a little bit of Monday Night Football, of course. We've got the big game tonight between the Niners and Rams. Going to start off with Marco D'Angelo here on the show. He's also going to give us an advanced college football game for later this week. And we're going to close it off with Monday Night Football props from Meghan Payton, who joined us last week and broke down that Dallas-New York Giant game, did an excellent job. She's going to look now at the Niners and Rams from a prop perspective. And in between, we're going to have a little college football with Bryan Leonard's got a couple advanced games for this weekend. And don't forget about Thursday night football. Teddy's got a big game breakdown for your Thursday night game between the Broncos and Colts. So we got some primetime NFL, some advanced college football. But before we get to all that, Teddy, reminder that it's $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com. Premise is very simple. Every single best bet, every sport today and tonight, just $9. No promo code needed. WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, we always do What Did Bettors Learn? But since it's Monday, it's my favorite version of What Did Bettors Learn? It's the triple double Bs. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Take it to us.
Let's get into it. A little bad beats, bad bets, and bad for the books, as Steve just mentioned. A recap of what happened this past weekend. We'll start with some bad beats on Saturday. First bad beats, anyone that had my plays on Saturday. I had an awful, truly awful Saturday, unfortunately. It's even going to bounce back this week, but no fun yesterday, or on Saturday, I should say. But for those who are actually betting plays, let's see, Northern Illinois, they're -3/3.5 at Ball State. They're up 24-7 at the break. They're up double digits with 4 minutes left. You know, with the tying touchdown pass in the closing seconds and lose in double overtime. No fun for Huskies backers. How about Temple backers? They're +18.5, +19. They lead at halftime at Memphis. They get stuffed at 4th and goal, trying to take a 2-score lead, and then they give up 24 unanswered, +18.5. No good for the Owls. Rutgers gets 10 points off Ohio State turnovers. They didn't move the football at all. And both Ohio State turnovers came deep in their own territory. Ohio State, 7 touchdowns, 7 extra points. They win 49-10, a 39-point victory. However, they were laying 39.5. The fake punt that led to a brawl at the end. I had a cheap shot at that punter, too. That said, wasn't good if you had Ohio State. All of a sudden, Rutgers got interested again. The Buckeyes were cruising. Tough beat if you had Ohio State. In the NFL on Sunday, what about the Ravens? +3 versus the Bills. They completely dominate. Settle for field goals in the first half. They still had 20-3. They scored each of their first 4 drives. They didn't score again. Lamar Jackson's interception at the goal line on 4th down. And the Bills kick a field goal as time expires. It was a push. You had the Ravens. It was an ugly push, though, of the bad beat variety. Of course, the Steelers, -3, -3.5. They're up 10 in the 4th quarter. You expect a push at worse. The Jets' back-to-back touchdown drives get the game winner in the closing seconds. Tough if you had Pittsburgh. When it comes to bad bets on Saturday, holy money lines. Big dogs winning all over the place. BC outright over Louisville. Purdue outright over Minnesota. TCU blowing out Oklahoma. Wake Forest outright over Florida State. Kansas, another upstate. Iowa State missed 3 field goals, and the Jayhawks survive in advance. UConn +23 against Fresno State. No show for the Bulldogs. Georgia Tech +21.5. In fact, all the teams that fired their coaches covered this past weekend in college football. Georgia Tech won outright at 21.5-point dogs at Pitt. Florida International plus 15.5 beat New Mexico State. Rice plus 10.5 UAB. You're betting any of that chalk. That'd be bad bets. And of course, Georgia got bet up from minus 26 to minus 32. They needed a late rally to beat Missouri. You can't cover minus 32 when you don't score 32. Georgia. Oh, that was a bad bet. On Sunday, the wise guys all over Indy, minus 3 to minus 4. They lose wire to the Texans. The Packers, minus 6.5 to minus 9.5. No Mac Jones. Well, no problem for New England. The Pack needed every second of overtime just to win by a field goal. That was a bad bet. And there was all this wise guy money on Tampa last night. I don't know why. I really don't. Yeah, they were a little bit healthier, but it wasn't pretty. They fumbled the opening kickoff, and it never got better. Bucks money all wrong, lost by double digits to Kansas City. When it comes to bad for the books, Saturday, look, it was all Illinois money. And they blew out Wisconsin and Madison and got the coach fired. Paul Christ got the X yesterday. That was bad for the books. Service Academy games, the under trend that keeps on giving, now 42-9-1 the last 52. Air Force 13, Navy 10, the total of 38, not low enough. One public dog covered, Kentucky at Ole Miss, but the bigger one, the one that all the public loved, Arkansas plus 17. Don't be stepping in front of Alabama. Folks found out the hard way on Saturday. In the NFL, look, was not a great result for the house yesterday, not by any stretch of the imagination. The London game was bad. The Vikings opened -1. They closed -4. They win by 3, lands right in the middle. Nobody bet the Bears-Giants over. That was 20-12 final, stayed under the total. Nobody bet the Lions. The injury report was brutal. I bet the Lions. All Seahawks money in that game. Detroit went over their team total by 18 points and lost outright. That was bad for the books. Every recreational bettor had the Cowboys yesterday against Washington. That was a winning cover. And look, the public sides crushed it yesterday. I do the tweet, pros versus Joes. Well, the Joes went 5-0 yesterday on my tweet, including Kansas City winning, Tennessee, Dallas, Arizona, all strong public sides. Clearly, the worst Sunday of the season for the books. There you have it, Steve. Little bad beats, bad bets, and bad for the books. Back to you, my friend.
Yeah, I got to touch on the public sides, obviously, in the NFL, because I do that video every week. And I did a rare Thursday night edition and mentioned that the Dolphins were a very public dog. And, of course, Cincinnati won and covered. And that brought the fading the public sides I've mentioned the first 3.5 weeks to 11-3 this year. But the public got some of it back, like you said yesterday on Sunday. I had both Dallas, Arizona, and KC in that video as public plays that you just mentioned there. The other one I did have was Minnesota, and that was a little bit of a middle, whatever you want to say. I put the video out late Friday night. It was -3, but obviously most people that saw that, if they'd faded the Vikings, would have won because it went to 3.5, 4 during the weekend. So the public was either 3-0 or 3-1 yesterday. And by the way, little hint, I've got a Monday night public side in that game as well, and that video is still up on WagerTalk TV. So get out the public information for Rams 49ers on WagerTalk TV. It's not too late to check out that video. Still done very well this year. Depending on that Viking result, it'd be 12-6 now, fading the public the first 4 weeks. Another guy that's done pretty well this year is Marco D'Angelo. And, Marco, you and I and some others at WagerTalk have teamed up to do the WagerTalk.com entry. And we have not had a bad week. Went 4-1 this weekend in the NFL. Now 17-3 on the season. And Prez is part of that team. And Prez is getting all excited, asking if we still have a chance at the money. And I explained to him that we're in the Westgate for like the 10th time. I think I've explained this, that we're not in the Circa contest and that there's 3-week prizes. And we missed it by 1 game because we went 13-2. What I didn't tell you guys, Marco, is that one of my other entries knocked us out of the tie for 3rd place because we went 14-1 with the Shady 5, which Joe Ranieri and the Sports Grid guys are part of. And Teddy, Joe actually had the Ravens as that pick yesterday, so I was not happy to see them blow that big lead. We ended up getting a half point. We're 16-2-2 instead of 17-2 in that contest. As Marco knows, we're 17-3 in the Westgate. But I bring all of this up because Wednesday's show might be pretty good to tune into here on Wager Talk Today because we have both Carmine Bianco and Adam Trigger. And there's over 1,500 entries in the Westgate. There's almost 4,700 entries in the Circa. And either Carm or Adam is going to finish in the money in the first 4-week contest, depending on the result tonight in that 49ers-Rams game. Carm is out. He's gone 18-1-1, a mere 18-1-1 his first 20 picks. So he has no interest in tonight's game other than what Adam has. And Adam is involved here, and that could decide who finishes in the money or something like that. But anyway, tune in Wednesday to find out. Should be pretty interesting talking to those two guys. I'm sure Prez will have a lot of fun. And Marco Prez will complain that we're only 17-3 in the Westgate and didn't finish any money yet. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday's show. But Marco, great start to the NFL. I know you're seeing it really well. I want to get right into it. What are your thoughts on this Monday Night Football game, Rams and 49ers?
Well,
yeah, I'll jump
before
right
we get
in.
into
I just want to say one thing to Teddy and his bad beats.
Before we get into Monday Night Football, I do want to touch on what Steve was talking about with the contest real quick. Of course, Wager Talk Today has an entry as well. We're 16-4, so nowhere near the money. But it's been a good start to the season. But you talked about the money. This isn't a couple of bucks that Trigger and Carm are in play for, all right? This is how it works, all right? If the Niners minus 1.5 wins, then they're going to chop. They both win $105,000, all right? $100,000 tonight. Nice. If the Rams win, first place is Carmine's alone for $150K. So it's not a little prize. These guys are about to make some money tonight. Let's give them all the credit in the world. And of course, you talk about your entry at 17-3, Steve, and ours, the Wager Talk Today entry with me and Prez at 16-4. Not good enough. Carmine, 18-1-1, and Trigger in position to tie him. Well done, boys. Well done. Marco, sorry to cut you off.
No problem. It's been a fun year. I just wanted to say one thing about that Buffalo-Baltimore game that ended as a push. One decision determined the outcome to make that be a push. Harbaugh going on 4th and 2 with 4 minutes left instead of kicking the field goal. If he kicks the field goal, Buffalo wins and covers because Buffalo ended the game at the 2-yard line, taking a knee, running the clock down to kick the field goal with no time left. So a questionable decision on Harbaugh when they hadn't scored any points in the second half to pass up the field goal, the short field goal, by going 4th and 2. So just wanted to point that out in that game. And I was on the other side. I was on the Buffalo side. So at the first half, I would have taken a push all day long. But at the end of the game, I said, damn it, I should have had the win. But that's that. Going into Monday Night Football, guys, good news and bad news on this game. If you're a trend guy, there's 2 big trends here. Which one do you want to do? The bad trend for San Francisco is they're 1-10-1 against the spread as a home favorite, a divisional home favorite. Now, they're only a 1.5-point favorite. The flip side to that, the good news is they're 10-4 straight up and 11-3 against the spread their last 14 games against the Rams. They have absolutely owned the Rams in this series. Throw out another angle in here, and I know it's the most overused phrase in sports, but revenge. And I'm the first to say it. It is overused, except in certain situations. And one of the best ones, in my opinion, is playoff revenge. You never forget who ended your season, especially when they ended your season in the NFC Championship game and cost you a trip to the Super Bowl. And that's what the 49ers are doing tonight, trying to get revenge for that loss last year. It's a key game in the division. And we also find that San Francisco has been a Monday Night Football darling. They're 27-8 straight up, 24-10-1 against the spread at home. All those trends are nice, but it has nothing to do with tonight's matchup. Don't take a game just because of trends. Look at the matchup. And the matchup for me is I'm not impressed with the Rams team so far this season. They're going to go as far as Matthew Stafford takes them. And the 49ers are able to put pressure on Stafford. They will double team Cooper Kupp, the big weapon that the Rams have. The Rams have 0 running game, and you can't run on San Francisco. They're one of the best in the league against the run. I'm going to go ahead, take the 49ers tonight. They're a tough team to prepare for because of what they do on the ground. They run the football as good as anybody in the NFL, but they do it in unorthodox fashions with using Deebo Samuels in there. And what happens is when you try to adjust to that, it opens up other things for the receivers when they throw out of those formations. I'm going to go ahead and take the 49ers tonight. I've got them 27-10, or excuse me, 27-20, San Fran.
So you talked about how you haven't been impressed with LA this season. Are you impressed with San Fran this season? Because I look at the 49ers as a team that designed an offense for a new quarterback that they don't have anymore. And we haven't seen this offense click at any stage this season. Jimmy G is the guy that they tried to get rid of multiple off seasons. And they've been, you talked about the failures they've had repeatedly as home chalk in these divisional games. It's not like San Fran is one of the stronger home fields in the NFL. Do any of these issues concern you for the 49ers? Because for me, like if I'm playing San Fran, I can only play them with the under because I don't trust the 49ers to score.
Well, I agree with what you're saying in those three games, but let's not forget the first game was Trey Lance at quarterback in a monsoon in Chicago. The second game, Trey Lance gets hurt early and Jimmy G comes in. They put up 27 points on Seattle. Now, we know Seattle doesn't have a great defense, but they still managed to have a good performance with Jimmy G coming in off the bench cold, as you say, with the game plan for the other quarterback. Last week at Denver, Denver's got a decent defense, in my opinion. That was a Sunday night game. It was a road non-division game. For me, when I look at the schedule, the least important for a team is the road non-division games when you stack them up. Every game's important in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. You only play 17 of them. But when it comes down to the end of the season and tiebreakers, that is the least important game. They had the Rams on deck. I think extra day to prepare. Jimmy G offense will be back to what suits Jimmy G. I just like this matchup. I'm not impressed with the Rams. What I've seen from them this season, they stunk against Buffalo. They played an Arizona team that's flawed. They only scored 20 points against them. They did have 31 against Atlanta, but they let Atlanta back in that game late, scoring a couple late touchdowns to make it closer than it looked. I don't think either team has played as good as they're capable of, but I'm going to trust the 49ers at home because of the history of Shanahan against the Rams.
It's Marco D'Angelo looking at Monday Night Football. And I mentioned, how Marco's entry along with me, we're 17-3, the WagerTalk.com entry. And of course, we talked about Carmen, Adam Trigger doing extremely well in the circuit. Teddy said WagerTalk Today is doing well. Yes, we don't necessarily sell our contest picks, but a lot of these contest picks, you guys would agree, probably end up being best bets. So it's a great reason to check out WagerTalk.com. And Marco, you're an example of that. The last 4 weekends, 40-18, up over 58 units the last 4 weekends alone at WagerTalk.com. And all sports is pretty good. It's not just football. 22-10 run the last 10 days alone. 22-10 all sports. So check out Marco for $9 Monday right now at WagerTalk.com. All right, that's Monday Night Football. We got a lot of college football there. We're going to talk a couple more games with Bryan Leonard here in a few moments. Before we do so, though, I want to get a college football advanced look from you, Marco. Let's look at an SEC game, Missouri at Florida. I'm interested in your take on this. Missouri obviously playing very competitive football this season, yet they're just 3-2 against the spread, but they're just 2-3 straight up, and that's because back-to-back close losses and covers against Auburn by 3 and at Georgia, or at home against Georgia, losing by just 4. Do we back them here? Do they keep it close again, or is this one of those letdown spots? I know you and I like to look at situational analysis. Back-to-back tough losses can be tough to overcome sometimes.
Yeah, when I come on here on Monday mornings, and we gave you a winner last week here on the show for an advanced college play, and it's going to be a situational play almost every single time because that's what the first thing that I do. I go through the schedule and try to find spots where a team's going to be flat or be, have something to prove. And in this one, it's all about fading Missouri. This is a team that in their last 2 weeks went on the road at Auburn, a 7-point underdog. Now, granted, Auburn's down this year. They're not a good football team. But as far as the mystique of SEC for Missouri, that still was a big game for Missouri. And they went there and almost pulled the upset, losing 17-14. Then they follow that up with a home game to the number 1 team in the country, the defending national champs, Georgia. And what do? Well, football games are 60 minutes, boys. They led for 55 of those 60 minutes. 4 minutes and change, Georgia gets the go-ahead touchdown, comes from behind, squeaks out the win 26-22. If I'm the Missouri players, how do you get up this week after having that game where you had it right there to pull off a major upset as a 31-point underdog? Now they're going on the road to play a Florida team that, lambasted a cupcake last week, Eastern Washington. They put up 52 in a 52-17 win. But this is a team that scored 33 points against Florida, 31 against South Florida. They did lose to Kentucky, 26-16, and they scored 29 against Utah, who is also a very good defensive team. I don't see how Missouri slows this Florida team down. And what I like about Florida is this is a team that can run the football. They're number 4 in the country at 6.3 yards per carry, 210 yards per game on the ground, and they throw for 253. Why do I like a team that runs the football well, laying points? Because when you're protecting the lead in the fourth quarter, not only are you killing clock, but you can add to the lead. If it's a passing team trying to kill clock, you know how that works out. It never works out well, and it leaves the back door open. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Florida. I'm going to lay the points. When I sent it in last night, it was -10. Starting to see some 10.5s pop up. I would get on this one sooner than later. Lay it with Florida, 41-17.
Just real quick, Marco. I mean, the Gators have not been good favorites by any stretch of the imagination. I've got them 0-7 their last 7 tries laying points, including 0-2 in the Billy Napier era, and neither one was close. They were -6 against Kentucky. They lost that game by double digits. They were -23 against South Florida, and they won that game by a field goal. This is a team with a repeated history of failing to cover the favorite. And say whatever you want about Missouri, they're playing defense every game. Do either of those factors concern you?
Well, as far as the defense goes, I had Kansas State the second week of the season when they played Missouri, and they didn't play any defense in that when they won 40-12. Kansas State did. And as far as those 2 games you pointed out for Florida, that they didn't cover as the favorite this year, the Kentucky game, Kentucky's a quality team. And Kentucky game was coming that week after his first game as head coach when they upset Utah on that, opening weekend. And then the South Florida game, come on, that was the sandwich spot for the ages. Coming off Kentucky and before Tennessee, you're going to get pumped up for South Florida. That was a sandwich special for Marco. No, that doesn't concern me. Lay it with Florida today.
Marco loves his sandwiches. Bryan Leonard, who's coming on next, will confirm that for a fact. He also loves his wings, as I've been told. And that game goes, by the way, early Saturday at 12 noon Eastern. And as you said, Marco, couple 10 still floating around there, but mostly 10.5. So if you like Florida, you might want to play that one early. A little advanced look here on Monday at Saturday College Football. As I mentioned, Marco is red hot. It is $9 Monday, an excellent time to check out a capper that's on a 22-10 all sports run the last 10 days. What else you got going at WagerTalk.com, Marco?
Oh, I got the $9 package up. I do this on Mondays. I make it an all-access package. Why? Because I got the Monday Night Football game. Gee, I wonder who's in my package tonight on Monday Night Football. So you already know who I'm using there, but you're going to get the Monday Night Football with my detailed analysis along with all of my baseball today for $9. Check it out, WagerTalk.com.
Love it. That's Marco D'Angelo, WagerTalk.com. And although we're talking football today, we do still have some regular season baseball. I'll be back at 2 o'clock Eastern with the MLB First Pitch Show. Teddy Covers is in between with Drew Martin here at 1 o'clock Eastern, NFL opening line report. So slam-packed Monday, as always, right here on Wager Talk TV. Teddy, let's take a breather for 30 seconds, and then we'll talk some Thursday night football. Colts-Broncos, big game breakdown. We'll be right back.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's talk some Thursday night NFL. Indy traveling to Denver. Looking at the Wager Talk live odds screen. I'm seeing the Broncos minus 3.5. We're seeing a little bit of over money coming in now. Let's call the total 43.5. There are 44s out there if you want to play the under. There are 43s out there if you want to play the over. I'm going to make a case for the under in this one. I do not trust either one of these two offenses. Jonathan Taylor, he's banged up, ankle injury. They don't even know he's going to play this week. But the bigger issue for Indy is the offensive line, which is getting destroyed. And we saw it all day yesterday. Tennessee in the backfield, play after play. Matt Ryan continues to take nasty hits. And Matt Ryan continues to lose fumbles when he gets hit. This is not a good quarterback and not a good passing game right now for Indy. No doubt about it. The one thing the Colts do have is a pretty good defense. And that's going to be a problem for Denver. Because Denver's offense, I'm not going to say every bit as bad as Indy's, but there are issues right now. Cluster injuries at running back. They can't trust Melvin Gordon to tote the rock because he's fumbled the ball 4 times in 4 games, including a huge one yesterday that probably cost them the game. It's a Denver offense that could move the football against Raiders defense that's not very good. They could move the football the week before that. Russell Wilson has zero chemistry with these receivers right now. The offensive line is problematic. The running game is problematic. But defensively, Denver can get stops. So we got an Indy team who we trust their defense a lot more than their offense. We got a Denver team who we trust their defense a lot more than their offense. And the money's coming on the over. Not for this better. Look for the Broncos and Colts to stay under the number. Again, you can find 44s if you shop around right now. 43.5, the prevailing number. There's your big game breakdown for Thursday Night Football. Back to you, Mr. Merrill.
Teddy covers a little advanced look at Thursday Night Football. Short week for both teams coming off a loss, and that line also 2.5 up to 3.5 from the before kickoffs yesterday to after the games were played. And obviously, we talk about that Minnesota game landing right on 3 against the Saints. Ralph Michaels put up a nice tweet yesterday about how often do games land exactly on 3 when the line's 2.5 to 3.5, and it's about 9.5, 10% of the time. So, that's a substantial move right there. We saw it happen exactly right after he puts that tweet up, Teddy, in the first game of Sunday. It happens exact yesterday in Minnesota, New Orleans. All right, we're going to bring on Meghan Payton in a few moments to look at Monday Night Football prop style. But before we do so, let's talk a little bit more college football for this week. Bring on Bryan Leonard from WagerTalk.com. And, Brian, I mentioned $9 Monday. And the beauty of $9 Monday is every play is $9, including any advanced plays. And Brian does have a huge 5% college football best bet loaded right now for this Saturday. That's a $35 play. But on Monday up until midnight tonight, you can get it for just $9. So check that out from Bryan Leonard. He knows his college football. And to prove that, Brian, I'm going to ask you a couple games here. Let's start with Fresno State and Boise. Boise was having a rough season with that outright loss to UTEP a couple weeks ago as a double-digit favorite. I was doing Sports Grid with Morency and Company on Friday, and we talked about how they made some changes. And, often that can be a catalyst for programs, and they did look a little bit better on Friday night. What are your takes on the game this week, Fresno at Boise State?
Yeah, Fresno at Boise, a big conference game out here out west. The Bulldogs were off back-to-back embarrassing losses on the road, including, for some reason, traveling from California to Connecticut in the middle of the season. Didn't understand that, and the players look like they didn't understand it either. As Connecticut, a team that's really starting to play some pretty good ball, gets that victory. So now it's the 3rd straight road game for Fresno State. And normally I would look to fade a situation like that. But since they have been blown out in those first 2 games against the spread, I think it was a look ahead last week. They had no interest in playing in Connecticut. And I think it'll show this week against Boise. Despite the 1-3 record on the season, this team's 0-0 on Mountain West play. That is their goal every season. So it's a new year, and you can keep that involved with a lot of teams across the country that just play for the conference championship. They take paychecks early on, and then they get into conference action, play a totally different game. Fresno also has home field revenge for a 40-14 loss a year ago to the Broncos. That was their only home loss in Bulldog Stadium on the season. I like to play teams in revenge for a home dog loss. Boise is a team 3-2 on the season, but take a look at the teams they've beaten. New Mexico, Tennessee Martin, San Diego State, who we know has no offense whatsoever. This line should not be 6.5 in my regard. It should be closer to 3. I'll take the number here with Fresno State.
So my college football weekend got off to a lovely start on Friday night, which was a precursor for what Saturday was like. I had San Diego State plus the points at Boise, and that game felt like it was over at halftime. The Aztecs were up 13-0. They were thoroughly in control. Boise hadn't done anything. The crowd was dead. And then the first play of the second half, Burmeister comes out and throws a terrible interception right in the hands of Boise. And Boise took advantage. And all of a sudden, this offense that didn't do anything, they look like a complete, I mean, you talk about momentum shifts. And yeah, momentum comes and it goes. And this was a completely different Boise team in the second half. Now, their defense has been real good all season. That's an elite defense. The offense has been struggling mightily. And the offense figured it out against a really good defensive team last week. Does that concern you here? Because I didn't enjoy that. And I don't know that I'm ready to step in front of Boise again, because they were, again, if you watch first half, second half, it's like a completely different team. And when you see a team that is talented flip that switch, maybe they're an undervalued commodity right now? Or is that just a one-off, a second half against a team that can't score?
Yeah, that was just a half against a team that has a lame duck quarterback that wants to get out of there. So it's a situation for me that I haven't seen enough out of Boise to want to back them. Everybody's going to have good quarters, good halves, put a full game together, and then we'll talk. We'll see what happens this week.
It's Bryan Leonard, WagerTalk.com, and he's got a 5% best bet, a $35 5% best bet for this weekend that's available for just $9 because it's $9 Monday. And by the way, he's on a 19-7, a mere 19-7 run, Brian. We're talking about these 18-1 and 17-3 runs. My goodness, you got to pick it up a bit. Just 19-7. That's pretty darn good, too. I like what you said about the conference play starting, especially for teams like your MAC teams. I know you love your MAC action. You know, a lot of those times they'll get blown out the first 4 weeks, and you can't read too much into it. We see it in the NFL. Always talk about week one being the preseason still. I mean, look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were fortunate to win that game. They've done nothing since. The Jets have actually played better since looking really bad in week one. With that said, let's look at the Big Ten. Wisconsin is now 0-2 in the conference. Obviously a tough loss at Ohio State, but a bad loss at home as a 6-point favorite, Illinois, 34-10. Was that a hangover after the Ohio State game? Do they turn things around? Or is this a team in a downward spiral? I mean, they're catching a Northwestern team that's lost 4 straight. So how are you approaching this Big Ten game between two losing teams, Wisconsin at Northwestern? By the way, Badgers have gone from a 9.5 to 10-point favorite on the road already in this game.
Yeah, I sent this over last night before the coaching change. I knew Wisconsin wasn't playing well. I wanted to play against them. But I still like Northwestern regardless of it. I thought the line would go up, and I even said in a write-up I had that if we get to 10, this would be a game that's going to be on my card, and that's Northwestern. Despite the firing of Paul Chryst, we still like this side. The team promoted defensive coordinator Jim Leonard, other than having a great last name. He's taken over his head coaching duties here. Against Power 5 programs, Wisconsin's been outscored 102-45. This has not been the same Wisconsin team, and in fact, it's been a while since a team that played like Wisconsin, a big power football team like that, has performed well. That used to be Nebraska's calling card. That was Wisconsin's calling card. It's a different game now, and if you've got to have a quarterback that can throw the ball downfield, it's going to take a while when you recruit big offensive linemen and guys that are not in the passing game, and that's what Wisconsin has right now. So I don't think it's a flip the switch situation here for Wisconsin, especially when you have an interim coach there and you're not bringing somebody else in right now. So I don't see a big change here. Northwestern lost to Wisconsin last year, 35-7, but that was a rarity as these two really played close games. In fact, the last 2 times they played in Evanston, Northwestern has won straight up. We all know about the underdogs in Northwestern games. A friend of Teddy and mine is Arthur out here in Las Vegas. He's a Northwestern graduate, and he talks about this every week. Just play the underdogs in Northwestern games. I believe they're undefeated on the season so far, and they've done so well over the years. I don't want to buck that trend. My power ratings do show Wisconsin to be 8 points better on a neutral. But we're showing 4 points of value now with the coaching change here. Even if you give Northwestern a 2-point, which is very small, they still should not be a 10-point home dog here. For a team who's won the last 2 times here, playing Wisconsin, a team in disarray right now, I can't lay the points. Steve talked about how the new coaches did last week. I think this is a new coach that's going to struggle here this week going into Northwestern.
Well, you just took away my follow-up question because I'm talking about Jeff Collins gets fired from Georgia Tech, and all of a sudden Georgia Tech plays 3 touchdowns better than they were. And Scott Frost gets fired from Nebraska, all of a sudden Nebraska's winning games and covering point spreads. Even Arizona State's covered a couple of spreads without Herm Edwards in charge. Does that new coach bump concern you at all in this one, Bri? Because certainly we have seen the college kids take their coach getting fired a little personally at some of the other schools.
Some of those schools you mentioned, in fact, the Arizona State, you knew that was going to be a situation for them. It's rare that a coach gets fired right on the sidelines after the games. A lot of the time, they just don't like the coaches. And I don't think that's a problem with Chris. I don't think that was what happened. Chris had a pretty good career at other places, and I don't think that's as much of a big deal as it is for a couple of those other schools you had mentioned. Georgia Tech had probably the worst college football head coach in the country. So getting rid of him was a plus. We see that a lot. So I don't think this is the same situation here in Wisconsin as there are in some of those other schools that played last week.
It's Bryan Leonard. And one thing I'll point out there is a lot of underdog spots, like Arizona State was a big dog loss, but covered here. You've got a Wisconsin team that's got to win straight up by double digits. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. A little bit of head coach. That is Bryan Leonard. And, Bryan, look, I mentioned that $9 Monday gets you the strong 5% college football best bet. You're on a 19-7 run, all sports. Don't forget also baseball. He's got a strong 4% play. But one thing we have not mentioned on the show here, we're talking baseball, football, college, and pro. NHL hockey starts this Friday. Tell us about your hockey as well at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, we've been number one on the site the last 5 years. I've been handicapping hockey for 5 years, as opposed to everything else for about 40. But it's worked out very well for us. Another winning season last year, finished number 2 behind Andrew McGinnis, who had just a phenomenal season. But go back the last 5 years, number 1 on the site in hockey. And Johnny put up a really nice special for the first week of hockey up on the site, on my site. $39, which is really just for one day on the All Access. You get that for a week. And if you're one of the first 25 to sign up, you get an additional 2 days for that. So you want to get on this for hockey. And I also have a nice baseball play today. I have 4% in baseball, and we're number 1 in 4% profit in 2022. Love this baseball play. So even though we're not to the playoffs yet, you still make money on the diamonds.
Another great reason to consider an all sports, all access in the month of October from any capper at WagerTalk.com, because with Bryan, you're getting basketball, baseball, football, and hockey all in one package. Once again, that's a fantastic 7-day hockey package for $39. Get out there right now. You get actually 9 days for $39. That's Bryan Leonard, WagerTalk.com. And by the way, if Andrew finished number 1, Teddy, that means Bryan was the number 1 ranked U.S. hockey handicapper last year. So that's something to be pretty proud of. Nothing wrong with losing to a Canadian when handicapping the NHL. All right, let's bring on Meghan Payton. We're going to talk some NFL once again, Monday Night Football. Meghan did a great job last week breaking down that Cowboy-Giant game from a prop perspective. So we told her we want more props. And Meghan, I'm going to throw it right to you. It's great to see you as always. Give me something on the Niners tonight from a prop perspective.
Great to see you, Steve and Teddy. Thanks for having me on. Let's talk Niners. Player prop I have for you is the over on wide receiver Brandon Ayuk's receptions at 4.5. Ayuk is going to beat out this Rams defense. The Rams secondary allowing a 74.7% catch rate. Over 3/4 of the catches on defense are being caught. That's insane. Now, last week, Ayuk had 3 receptions in the loss against the Broncos. This number is going to increase as Jimmy Garoppolo gets better. I expect a big jump from Jimmy G from week 3 to week 4. So I am taking the over on Ayuk's receptions at 4.5.
So, first of all, let me give you credit for going 3-0 last week with 3 overs, and I was giving you grief about 3 overs, and they went boom, 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 nice and easy, all 3 of them, to be honest. So well done,
Well,
Meghan.
thank you. I appreciate it. You know what? The under didn't hit, though. I was expecting it to be a little bit more low scoring, but, we got close there. I was excited about those 3 props.
You gave out 3 props on the show. I don't know what your other bets were. All I know is what you gave out here. You gave out 3 props, and they cashed. But you said something a moment ago. All 3 of them cashed. You said something a moment ago that I want to ask you why. You said, Jimmy G's going to be better this week than he was last week. Of course, Jimmy G. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
San Fran spent the whole offseason designing their offense for a quarterback other than Jimmy G. And now they're trying to, to put this square peg into a round hole and figure it out how to do it. What makes you think that Jimmy G is going to be any better at any point than the quarterback who we know and love, a guy who we want to fade? Because, Ayuk is only one of the 3 games so far has he gone over 4.5 receptions.
Because of what you just said, Teddy, because the 49ers did plan all offseason on quarterback Trey Lance. That didn't happen. So then you try to go back to, I've seen some people compare it to going back to your ex, where you know what you're getting out of them, but it's going to be a little bit awkward those first couple of weeks. You're trying to feel things out again. But at the end of the day, Jimmy Garoppolo is still a first-string quarterback in this league. He really is. And I think it's just going to take time because he didn't get those reps in practice. He didn't get a playbook during training camp. Give it a few weeks for him to get the rhythm back. And I'm not saying we're going to see some elite quarterback play out of Garoppolo, and that is a player that can win you games. And really, that's a player that we know can take you to the NFC Championship and is still a first-string quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and don't forget in this matchup last year for the NFC Championship, the 49ers had a 17-7 lead entering the fourth quarter in that game. Rams had to score 13-0 just to win it at home. It was basically a Niners home game. Had a lot of fans there. This one's in San Fran now, and Garoppolo played the entire game last year, earlier this year, January, 8 months ago. Had a QB rating almost 10 points higher than the Rams starter, So, I mean, this is a situation in which Garoppolo is not like he's off the bench as a backup. He was the starting quarterback in the championship game last year. Had a 10-point higher rating than Matthew Stafford. So we'll see how it works out tonight. All right, you're 3-0 last week. Pressure's on. That's going to make it 4-0. Now I need a Ram prop so we get to 5-0 the last couple of weeks in your props here on this show, Megan.
Okay, Steve, my Rams prop for you is I'm taking the under on Cam Akers rushing yards at 44.5. Akers does not stand a chance against this Niners defensive line. San Fran has the second best run defense in the NFL. And ever since Akers has come back from that Achilles injury, which we know is a very difficult injury to come back from, he's averaging 2.7 yards per carry. I don't see it happening this week. I am taking the under on Akers 44.5 rushing yards.
So Akers showed signs, shall we say. He did very, very little the first couple weeks of the season. Then last week against Arizona, 12 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown. And all of a sudden, he's a piece of the offense. Even in the win over Atlanta, he was a piece of the offense with 15 carries in that ball game. So after doing very little in the opener, it seems like LA is relying more on the run game right now. When you talk about San Fran and their run defense, I mean, have the Niners faced a whole lot of good offenses yet? Denver, Seattle, Chicago. I'm not surprised they've had good success against the run so far. They haven't faced any team that can run the football. Does any of that concern you here?
I see your point, but at the same time, you could flip the switch and say the same about the Rams and Cam Akers against the Atlanta Falcons. Are the Falcons defense so great? The Niners, what do we know about them? The reason that they made it to the NFC Championship last year might have not been because Garoppolo was so fantastic, but their defense was solid. And for the most part, they've brought that back. I expect the Niners to have a bit of an advantage against the run when we're talking Cam Akers, and really just what we've seen out of Akers so far since coming back from that Achilles injury and playing into it, the teams that he's been going against.
It's Meghan Payton. You can find her at WagerTalk TV here at WagerTalk.com. Meghan will be back on Wednesday, maybe into Thursday, doing some prop videos for us, also some preview videos for the advanced NFL games. And Meghan, tell people what else you got going on. Your great follow at Twitter at Meghan Payton 7 at Twitter as well.
Yeah, we're going to be doing some fun stuff here over at Wager Talk. We're going to be doing some Reaction Mondays. So that should be up either tonight or tomorrow. Some of the what were you thinkins of Sundays. We're going to be doing some plus money props later this week. As you mentioned, we'll have some more props for you on the Prez address later this week. But of course, all over the place on Wager Talk TV. I appreciate you guys having me on here on Monday. Let's cash in some money for Monday Night Football.
Just another reason to hit subscribe and hit that bell for an instant alert when those NFL videos go live here from Meghan Payton and company here at Wager Talk TV. And Teddy, Prez will be back tomorrow. I can't believe he sucked Meghan into the presidential address. I did not realize that it happened. She's in the administration. It's a scary thought. She better be careful. That administration has some cracks at times from the presidential address. But no, he does a great job. That's another reason to hit subscribe. Don't forget my NFL Fade the Public. I still have information on the Monday night game. Not too late to check that video out here. And about 15 minutes from now, Teddy, you're going to be back with the opening line report with Drew Martin. And then I'll be back right after that 2 o'clock Eastern, MLB first pitch as we head towards the playoffs this week in baseball. Looking forward to working with you again later this week. I think I'll be guest hosting on Friday, Teddy, so enjoy the next 3 days in between.
Sure. I appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday. And, of course, the NFL opening line report, as you mentioned at the top of the hour. 2 weeks ago, we had 14,000 views, and then last week we had technical issues. So we didn't quite match that number. But it's a good show. Stick around. Check it out at the top of the hour. I want to thank Bryan Leonard, Mark D'Angelo, and Meghan Payton for joining us today. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us right here on Wager Talk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left coast. Noon for you back east. Between now and then, you know what to do. Enjoy the games and good luck.
Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, when all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets, normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for Overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.